everyone, welcome back to Actual English. I'm Jennifer Clyde. It's time for lesson 214 and today's topic is ferries or ferry boats. So a ferry or ferry boat is a boat or a ship that's used to carry primarily passengers but even cargo and vehicles across a body of water. Now, these ferries operate on regular return services, and the ones that are usually for passengers, they may have many stops, and especially these passenger ferries that's found in Venice, Italy, they're also called water bus or water taxi. So I'm sure you've heard about water taxis in Korea. I've seen several water taxi stops or stations, but I've never taken one myself. So we'll talk about ferries you'll most likely find at the Han River. Okay, are you ready? Let's begin then.
I recently heard about the water taxis or people taking kind of like ferry boats to work. I had no idea people were doing that in Korea. I knew in Hong Kong they have the Star Ferry. So when I was there when I was younger, I always thought it was interesting that someone would use that every morning and every night, ride in a boat to get to work. Have you ever been to Hong Kong?
I've never, but I've heard about the Star Ferry, and it's commuters really do use them, don't they?
Right, and it's been around forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think I saw some of this sort of ferry thing going on the Han on TV.
Oh, on a drama or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's becoming quite popular with the sort of younger generation for perhaps a date or a special occasion.
Quite romantic, right?
Well, it is, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
It's sort of like a tour boat without the running commentary in your ear.
Right. I also see the benefit of it as commute, a non-romantic thing, avoiding traffic completely.
Yeah, I mean, the traffic here is really bad, as in most cities, I think. So it's definitely a big positive.
I wonder about the cost of it. I wonder if it's affordable.
I think it's on a par with perhaps taking a normal taxi.
Okay.
So it's not too expensive.
So a little more expensive than taking a subway or bus, but
I'm not absolutely sure, but I think
Okay.
so. I mean, looking at the bigger picture, I mean, we have, in Korea anyway, there are lots of ferries going between the mainland and also the small islands.
Oh, and as well, you can go to Japan.
Right, and they use a hydrofoil for that. So
Okay.
that's really sort of, fantastic sort of technological feat
James
there.
Bond.
Absolutely. So I know I've never been on this sort of taxi boat on the Han.
We should go next weekend.
Well, I'm really curious to see what it's like.
Let's go check it out.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Today, Eugene and Mary were talking about ferries or ferry boats. Eugene has mentioned something about hearing about or seeing these ferries on television, perhaps on Korean dramas. And Mary has told us about how she has been on similar boats or ships or ferries in other countries, such as in China and Japan. Let's take a look at the conversation in more detail then. Mary began by saying, I recently heard about the water taxis. Okay, I told you in Venice especially, they're called water buses, water taxis, or just ferries or ferry boats. Usually, water buses or water taxis are ferry boats for passengers, for people that is. And she says, or people taking the ferry boats to work. Okay, we all know what a ferry is. Now we do, right? Ferry or ferry boat. We're also calling them water taxis or water buses. But she says she has heard about these water taxis. She's also heard about people taking the ferry boats to work. Take A to B. Take A to work means to use something, such as a bus, some sort of vehicle, as a means of transport to a certain location. So she's saying she's heard about people taking the ferry boats to work, okay? I had no idea people were doing that in Korea, okay? So she's heard about it in other countries, but she was not aware that people in Korea were also making use of these ferries to go to work. She says, I knew in Hong Kong, they have the Star Ferry. So when I was there when I was younger, I always thought it was interesting that someone would use that every morning and every night Why? Ride in a boat to get to work. So she's saying that she has been to Hong Kong and she has seen many people using these ferries or water taxis as a means of transportation to get to work every single day. And then she says, have you ever been to Hong Kong? Eugene says, I have never. No, I have not. I've never been to Hong Kong, but I've heard about the Star Ferry in Hong Kong. And then he says, and commuters really do use them, don't they? Now, we all know the word commute. But, oh, there we go. C-O-M-M-U-T-E. To commute means to travel some distance, right? Especially if you are living in the suburbs and you have to go to work and your workplace is in the city, then you would have to commute to work or commute to school, in which case you would travel a long distance. A commuter, if you add an R, would be a person or people that travel some distance to get to work, for example, okay? We're not talking about a 10-minute bus ride. We're talking more about perhaps a 30-minute, 40-minute, even an hour bus ride to work or to school. They would be commuters. And then Mary says, right, and it's been around forever. Be around for some time. Be around means to exist, to be present. It also means to be alive, okay? But here she's saying forever. It has been around forever. She's stressing that it has been in existence. It has been around for a very long time, okay? So one more time, it's been around forever, okay? It's been around forever. Well, I think I saw this sort of fairy thing going on the Han on TV. So he's saying he has seen it on television. And Mary says, oh, on a drama or something? Okay. He says, yeah, and I think it's becoming quite popular with the younger generation, among younger people. Why? For perhaps a date or a special occasion. So he's saying that he's seeing more of these fairies on television, on dramas or even films. And he's saying, I think, yeah, fairies, they're becoming popular among or popular with the younger generation. It's much more popular among younger people. Why? Because they tend to go on the ferries. Why? For what reasons? For perhaps a date or a special occasion, okay? A birthday, anniversary, special days. And then Mary adds, yeah, it's quite romantic, right? Now, because it could be romantic, maybe that's why a lot of young couples go on these ferries on special dates or on special occasions. They can be romantic. Eugene says it is, isn't it? Meaning it is romantic, isn't it? It's sort of like a tour boat without the running commentary in your ear. Okay, so he's saying the ferry is like a tour boat without something, without a commentary. A commentary is like an announcement, usually on a broadcast for a performance or an event. If you hear an announcement giving you the details, that is a commentary. So simply put, think of it as an announcement, a detailed announcement or a comment about something. But he says running commentary. Running here, we're not talking about running, but we're talking about something that is said or played over and over and over again, continuously without pause or stop. In your ear. This itself means that it can be annoying. If something is right in your ear, if someone speaks to you in your ear for 10 minutes, how would you feel? Very frustrated and irritated, right? So he's saying that it's like a tour boat without the very frustrating and annoying commentary in your ear. Mary says, I also see the benefit, okay, an advantage of it as commute, a non-romantic thing, avoiding traffic completely. So she's saying that it also has the benefit. It also is good to use. Okay, people can use it as a means of transport because you can avoid traffic completely, 100%. Okay? Yeah, the traffic here is really bad, as in most cities around the world. So it's definitely a big positive. Okay? He's saying it's really good. Okay? And there are huge advantages. Mary says, I wonder. Okay? I wonder about the cost of it. Meaning, I wonder how much it costs. I wonder if it's affordable. Okay? This is a vocab word. If you say that something is affordable, you are saying that it is within your budget. Okay? It is within the amount of money you can spend. So if something is way too expensive and you don't have that much money, you can say, well, it is not affordable. Okay? If something is affordable, you are saying that you are able to pay for that. A synonym could be inexpensive. Okay? Eugene says, I think it's on par with perhaps taking a normal taxi. On the par with is what Eugene said, but this idiomatic expression, to be precise and exact, you would say without the. Okay, so he says once again, I think it's on par with perhaps taking a normal taxi. It's not too expensive. If you say that something is on par with something, you're saying that it is equal to. Okay, it's equal. It is the same as. So he's saying it is the same as taking a normal taxi. Okay, let's move on. So a little more expensive than taking the subway, of course, or even the bus. And Eugene says, I'm not absolutely sure. I'm not 100% sure, but I think so. I think it is a bit more expensive than the subway or bus, but almost the same as taking a normal taxi, which would mean the silver cab or the gray cab, right? There are lots of ferries going between the mainland and also the small islands. Go between. Here we're talking about traveling from A to B. Go between the mainland and the islands means to go from the mainland to the islands and vice versa. Mainland, we're talking about the main land, of course, main massive land, the larger continent, the larger piece of land. We're not talking about the islands. So the large, massive land as opposed to the islands. So he's talking about how these ferries travel from one place to another. Oh, and as well, you can go to Japan. Now she's talking about traveling to Japan and on one of these ferries. Eugene says, right, and they use the hydrofoil for that. So that's really sort of a fantastic sort of technological. And then Mary cuts him off by saying, James Bond. Okay. You might have got lost with this sentence here, but let's take it little by little. Let's take it slowly. First of all, we're talking about boats or ships that take you to Japan, and he says they use the hydrofoil. Hydrofoil is another word for a speedboat, a boat that travels at a very high speed. Okay? They're called speedboats or hydrofoil for that. And he says that's kind of like a fantastic sort of technological, and then she says James Bond. They're talking about how fantastic it looks on, in movies such as the 007 series, James Bond movies. They take those speedboats to travel from one place to another, chasing each other or running away from each other, okay? So they're trying to give you an idea of what an hydrofoil is, a speedboat. Absolutely, he says, I've never been on this sort of taxi boat on the Han, meaning Han River. I'm really curious to see what it's like. And of course, Mary says, hey, why not? I'm curious too. Let's go check it out. Okay, so they have decided to go to the Han River to check out the ferry boats there. And I hope you guys have a good time. I've been on one of those ferries, and it was a long time ago, but it sure was a nice experience. All right, then, let's take a listen to the conversation one more time.
I recently heard about the water taxis, or people taking kind of like ferry boats to work. I had no idea people were doing that in Korea. I knew in Hong Kong they have the Star Ferry. So when I was there when I was younger, I always thought it was interesting that someone would use that every morning and every night, ride in a boat to get to work. Have you ever been to Hong Kong?
I've never, but I've heard about the Star Ferry, and it's commuters really do use them, don't they?
Right, and it's been around forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think I saw some of this sort of ferry thing going on the Han on TV.
Oh, on a drama or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's becoming quite popular with the sort of younger generation for perhaps a date or a special occasion.
Quite romantic, right?
Well, it is, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's sort of like a tour boat without the running commentary in your ear.
Right. I also see the benefit of it as commute, a non-romantic thing, avoiding traffic completely.
Yeah, I mean, the traffic here is really bad, as in most cities, I think. So it's definitely a big positive.
I wonder about the cost of it. I wonder if it's affordable.
I think it's on a par with perhaps taking a normal taxi.
Okay.
So it's not too expensive.
So a little more expensive than taking a subway or bus, but
I'm not absolutely sure, but I think
Okay.
so. I mean, looking at the bigger picture, I mean, we have, in Korea anyway, there are lots of ferries going between the mainland and also the small islands.
Oh, and as well, you can go to Japan.
Right, and they use a hydrofoil for that. So
Okay.
that's really sort of, fantastic sort of technological feat
James
there.
Bond.
Absolutely. So I know I've never been on this sort of taxi boat on the Han.
We should go next weekend.
Well, I'm really curious to see what it's like.
Let's go check it out.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time for actual expressions. Here we go with a couple vocab words. First of all, we got 3 for you. Ferry. That is our topic for today. So now you know what a ferry is. A ferry boat is one way of calling it. Water boat, water taxi, or even in Venice, they call them water buses. Now, these would be ferries or boats that are usually used to, help people travel from one place to another over a body of water, comparatively a small body of water. Okay. What about commuter? It's not commute, but we have added an R, so it is a noun. Commuter, commuter. You can also call them suburbanites, a suburbanite or suburbanites. Commentary. Yes, they're more like explanations or narrations or announcements. Okay, think of that. Commentary. Moving on. Affordable. If something is affordable, it means what? You can afford it, which means it is not expensive. So some synonyms are low cost, inexpensive, or reasonable. Mainland. Now, this word can be pronounced 2 ways. Mainland or mainland. I'll give it to you, okay? Naturally. First of all, the first one, land. Mainland. Mainland. You will also hear mainland. Mainland. Do you see the difference? So this word is pronounced differently depending on who is pronouncing it, but it just means continent. We're talking about a large mass, the main part of land as opposed to an island. And hydrofoil. Hydrofoil. This is tricky. One more time. Hydrofoil. We're talking about speedboats. They're also even called cigarette boats. I would believe maybe because of its shape, okay? But you would get by with speedboat or hydrofoil. Practice that pronunciation. It's really, really tricky. Here we go with our first pattern. Take A to B. You can really make use of this pattern, especially when talking about traveling, commuting from one place to another, using public transportation. So, take A to B means to take A as a means of transportation to a location. Okay, here is a sentence. Question that can be asked both ways. What do you take to work? What do you take to work? Means how do you get to work? And by using this pattern, you can answer, I take the subway, or I take the bus to work, or I take the subway to school. This is pretty easy, right? So let's try the answer once. Let's say subway and to work. I take the subway to work. I take the subway to work. Good job. Moving on. Our second pattern is to be around for how long or since when. Okay, remember, for how long or since when. Be around means to be in existence, to exist or to be alive or to be present. Here is a sample sentence. The restaurant has been around since 1998. Okay? The restaurant has been around since 1998. So perhaps this means the restaurant opened in year 1998. One more sample sentence. That coffee shop has been around for years. We're not talking about the number 4, we're talking about the duration. Okay, so the coffee shop has been around for years, meaning many, many years. Okay, and then finally moving on to our last pattern, on par with someone or something. This means equal to someone or something. Sample sentence, your efforts are on par with my expectations. So here you're saying your efforts are equal to my expectations. One more time. Your efforts are on par with my expectations. Your efforts are equal to my expectations. Okay? Practice these vocab words and patterns more on your own. Job well done.
Seoul, like many of the major cities around the world, the capital cities, is built on the foundations of the river. The Han River runs through Seoul. The Thames River runs through London. All of the major cities around the world have a big river that runs through it. Why? Because of transport. Back in the olden days, it was a trade route. Now, we don't use it for trade anymore, but it's still really popular. The Han River has changed a lot, and now we use it for leisure activities, for biking, for picnics, but it's still also used as a commuter route. We use the Han River to get across from one side to the other, and we use water taxis. Water taxis are quite famous around the world. They haven't taken off here just yet, but I think over time that might change. You'll see people using the water taxis to go from Yeouido to Yongsan in a quicker way than getting across with a taxi on the main roads, because we all know Seoul is so busy for traffic. So if you can do it, go down to the river and find a water taxi.
Now, Martin has mentioned something about how in major cities, in big cities, many rivers run through it. Many rivers run through cities. Run through, in this case, means to go through. It crosses or goes through. So we're talking about how the Han River goes through the city. Seoul, that is. Okay, let's take a look at what else he's mentioned. The Han River has changed a lot. And now we use it for leisure activities, for biking, for picnics. Okay, we're talking about how people are making use of the Han River or the Han River Park compared to years and years ago. So it has changed a lot, and now people use it for leisure activities. Have you noticed? I say leisure activities, but Martin said leisure activities. So there is a difference in pronunciation. In American language, you would say leisure. Leisure activities. In British English, you would most likely hear leisure. Leisure. So people use it for leisure or leisure activities, for biking and for picnics. Moving on. It is also used as something, a commuter route. A route that is often taken by commuters. Okay? So once again, it's also used as a commuter route. A commuter route. Commuters take this route. Okay? We use the Han River to get across from one side to the other. Okay? From one side to the other. Basically saying, we use the Han River to cross or to go from one side to the other side of the Han River and we use water taxis. Water taxis, water buses, ferries, or ferry boats. You can use all of those terms, okay? And then here we go with one final sentence. They haven't taken off here just yet. Have not taken off just yet. Not yet. Hopefully in the near future. Take off. Here we're talking about how something has become popular. If you say that something has taken off in Seoul, you're saying that a lot of people are paying attention to it, okay? It's very interesting to a lot of people. Thus, it's very popular among people and it's used commonly by people. But he's saying they haven't taken off yet. Not yet. But I think over time, that might change. So he's saying after some time, I think that will change, meaning after some time, whether it's months or years, people will start using the water taxis to cross the Han River, that is, or to get from one place to another along the river. Okay, that is a wrap for today's actual story, everyone. Take a listen one more time.
Seoul, like many of the major cities around the world, the capital cities, is built on the foundations of the river. The Han River runs through Seoul. The Thames River runs through London. All of the major cities around the world have a big river that runs through it. Why? Because of transport. Back in the olden days, it was a trade route. Now, we don't use it for trade anymore, but it's still really popular. The Han River has changed a lot, and now we use it for leisure activities, for biking, for picnics, but it's still also used as a commuter route. We use the Han River to get across from one side to the other, and we use water taxis. Water taxis are quite famous around the world. They haven't taken off here just yet, but I think over time that might change. You'll see people using the water taxis to go from Yeouido to Yongsan in a quicker way than getting across with a taxi on the main roads, because we all know Seoul is so busy for traffic. So if you can do it, go down to the river and find a water taxi.
You know, it could be very, very convenient. Of course, you would have to worry about how to get to the Han River to jump on one of these water taxis, but it would save you a lot of time and money, perhaps, to travel on these water taxis to go to work in the mornings or in the afternoons or in the evenings, or perhaps during rush hour. It'll take you to a certain location much faster. This reminds me, water cabs or water taxis in New York, they're actually yellow. You're all aware that there are yellow cabs in New York City. Cabs are all yellow and they have black patterns on them. And so do these water boats or water taxis. They're yellow with black patterns on them as well. Very interesting. Okay, today we talked about ferries, of course, ferry boats or ferries. Next time, let's talk about the KTX. Another means of transportation that people love to take. So that's to come next time. In the meantime, come to our homepage, everyone. Come on over to www.ebse.co.kr. Look for Actual English with Jennifer and post up your postings and comments on our message board. That is it for today. I'll catch you again next time. Until then, take care and bye for now.